Hi, my name is Jeremy Bush, and this is Jared Van Vark, and we're with Keystone Financial Services here in Loveland, Colorado. And this is part of our educational series on some basics of finance. So, Jared, I understand you got a couple questions for us today.
I do, Jeremy. Well, you hear everyone talking about how important it is to start saving money, and the earlier you can start saving, the better off you are. Everyone's always talking about when you should start, but no one really talks about how you should start. So how do I actually start saving? Where do I start putting money?
That is a really good question. Yeah, and a lot of the times those simple ones like that, like, well, how do I even get started saving money, are usually some of the hardest ones to actually get answered. So really your idea, what you're looking at is, you're about to graduate, you're about to get that really great first job. Initially, you're just going to start getting those paychecks, okay? And it's more than likely going to be more money every month than you've ever made in your life.
That's what I want to hear.
And so that's really the goal, right? And so the easy trap to fall into is all of a sudden you're getting all this money, and it's really easy to start spending it, okay? So how much, really, the question is, how much of that paycheck should you be trying to save, okay? Now, again, really the idea is to just spend less than you make, okay? So basics of that, spend less than you make, live within your means, you're going to be okay. So to take that a little bit further then is, what is that kind of, what target should you be looking at per paycheck? Ideally, you want to try to save about 20% of your paycheck, okay? And so everybody looks at that and you're like, 20%, yeah, that's all right, I think I can probably do that. But then you look at that first paycheck and you're like, 20% of that paycheck, like, that's going to be...
I'm a recently graduated college kid. I mean, I just like to go out and
exactly,
have a good time.
Right? Exactly. And so really, to be honest, 20% of your paycheck on your very first job, especially initially, is going to be a really hard thing to do, okay?
Right.
Now, this is really an ideal place to be. That's where we really want to go, okay? But really, as long as, like I said, as long as you're living within your means and you're spending less than you're making, as long as you can put something away initially, you're going to be all right. Now, really the best way to start doing this is to build up an emergency fund, okay? So with the idea of, again, spending less than you make, the best way to ensure that that can continue on throughout your life is to have some kind of emergency fund when things do happen, as they inevitably will, all right? And so the idea behind an emergency fund is that you start out saving, and so this isn't all going to happen in 1 month either. Maybe it takes a couple months, or maybe it takes half a year. Your goal, your target goal, should at least be $1,000, all right? You get $1,000 into a savings account. Don't touch it. That is your emergency fund, all right? And then once you have that, then you can start saving the rest of that 20%, or maybe even just building up to that 20%, okay? Ultimately, as you go through life and you get a little older and you're going through the progressions of life cycles, really this emergency fund should actually look more like 3 to 6 months of your living expenses, all right?
Okay.
So if something really, really bad happens, you get hurt or you're not able to work for a while, you have this cash cushion, so you're not going to have to go into debt to support your life, okay?
Gotcha.
So ultimately, when you're fresh out of school, something like that, that $1,000 is really what you want to shoot for. Long term, 3 to 6 months of living expenses, okay?
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, that gives you your start to saving and your start to your emergency fund, okay? Now, what happens when, okay, I got my emergency fund set up, I'm getting closer to that 20%, now what do you do with it, all right? Now, this is where it's important, especially for long term, where you start to look at making sure you're taking advantage of, say, your company's 401k. Okay?
I'm always hearing people talk about free money with the 401k. What does that really mean?
Exactly. Great question. So 401k is, your typical savings, basically your retirement fund while you're working. Now, most employers, not all unfortunately, but most employers do offer some kind of match. Usually it's, it can vary depending on employer, but typically what I see in this line of profession is somewhere between 3 and 5% on average. 4% match is pretty typical, okay? So basically what that means is that if you're putting 3 to 5% of your paycheck every month into your retirement account, your employer is matching your 3 to 5% and also putting that into your retirement account.
There's the free money.
There's your free money. And so the nice thing about that is that you're paying into it, they're paying into it, you're doing it on a monthly basis, so that is just compound growing. The longer you have that in there, the better off you are. The general rule of thumb with this is if they're offering 3%, you should be putting at least 3% into there to match, to get that entire match. If they match 5%, you should be putting in that 5% to make sure you get that maximum amount of match that they're going to give you.
I got you.
Okay? Now, really what that means, so say you're getting 5% match, you put 5% in there, say you still have a little bit of paycheck left, and you want to do something with it.
Right.
You just don't want to throw it into a bank account, okay? Other things that you can do. You can also add to, say, Roth IRA, okay? Now, let me back up a second, because you can actually put into current legislation has us that you can personally put $18,000 per year into this 401k, okay? That is just your portion.
Okay,
so and that is for anybody under 50. There are catch-up provisions, what they call, for when you hit 50 and beyond, that you can do an extra amount. But seeing as how we're pretty much talking about getting started and whatnot, we'll go with the minimums for now. So
good.
that's going to be about 18,000. Say you have more than 18,000 that you end up wanting to put away. All right, like you got that great job and huge paycheck as well,
right?
And we're going to town, right? Another thing you can do then is you can also open up, say, a Roth IRA. Okay. Now, nice thing about a Roth IRA is that it has special tax implications later on in life when you want to start taking money out, where vast majority of that is going to be tax-free to you. Okay. Now, like this one has an $18,000 a year maximum. This one also has a maximum of about $5,500. Okay, with current legislation. So again, you're going to have limits. Now, if for whatever reason, say you maxed out this at 18,000, you maxed out this at 5,500, and you still want to put something away, you got a really great job.
I'm really killing it.
Fantastic place to be. All right, but there are other options as well. For instance, we could talk about health savings account, HSA, or maybe we might be a little more pertinent to just start, if you're in the realm of investing, to get into an individual taxable account. Individual. No real limits on that. It is a taxable account. Really, this is just a very basic brokerage account, how we talk about it, but you can throw whatever you want to into that. So you could do any kind of combinations of any of these things. But really, I'm going to go back to the beginning. Aim to hit that 20% per paycheck if you can, or at least start working up to that, okay? And the way you start working up to that is to start that emergency fund. Build that up, get it to at least that $1,000 mark, and then you can start to look at this other stuff. If your employer does offer that 401k, especially if they have a match, by all means, take advantage of every percentage of that match that you can.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, thanks for the advice, Jeremy. Hopefully that gets me started on the right track, and hopefully I get that job where I can max out both the Roth IRA and the 401k.
I hope you do as well, man. I hope you do.